Hi, we're so glad that you're here. We are visiting today with Reverend Peter Bushnell, the former rector of Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in Enfield, and who is now the priest in charge at Grace Church at Safford Springs. He is here to talk to us more about the Enfield Safe Harbor Warming Center, the history, what happens now, what's planned for the future. So I'm really happy to welcome you today. So nice to see you.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be here with you.
So I know that you have been involved with the center for a long time. Just give us a quick history of your involvement and how you got started.
Okay. In the fall of 2015, I was contacted by Pam Brown, who at that time was Enfield's Director of Social Services. And she told me that there were a number of people in Enfield who were meeting together and working on the possibility of establishing a warming center where homeless persons could spend the night in the winter months, beginning in January and ending in March. And so I began to meet with them along about, I'd say it was in October. And we got ourselves ready and trained some volunteers, and Holy Trinity offered space in their parish facility for people to come in. And they came in every night at 9 o'clock in the evening and spent the night until 7 in the morning. We had one staff person who was on duty through the night and 2 volunteers every night. And we began to have some food available for the guests who came to spend the night, and discovered that it was really a remarkable experience in many ways. We had a television there, and interestingly, it was never used except for the evening of the Super Bowl. Other than that, people wanted to, and this included the staff and volunteers and board members that came to visit with people at the warming center, much more interested in talking and sharing together and playing cards.
So more connection, more people looking for connection.
A lot of connection. There was one person that said to me that winter in early 2016, said to me, "You have no idea how lonely it is to be homeless." And it was at that point that I realized this was not only something to preserve people's health, it was something to preserve their well-being emotionally and mentally.
Yes, and we've seen that a lot this year in terms of isolation, and people are understanding firsthand why that's important.
Yep.
So the vision originally was a place to stay, but it's become more than that.
A safe and warm place for people to be, and where they would receive nourishment and friendship.
Yes, so that's a wonderful mission. How has it changed over time? I know that you're in your 6th winter. They're in the 6th winter.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how has that changed since the original early days?
Well, for 5 winters, we developed and expanded what we were doing. We accumulated, for example, large totes, plastic totes that people could store stuff in, because we came to realize if they left their belongings, clothing, that sort of thing, where they had been living in the out of doors, it would either be stolen or ruined by the weather.
Mhm.
And so, so we began to accumulate things that would help. And there was a lot: bedding, um, and we realized that the greatest need that homeless people have is clean, dry socks.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, you know, coats, hats, gloves, and just, the clothing that you wear under your outdoor clothing.
Right.
So, we started to accumulate a lot of that, toiletries, other personal items,
Does
so
that all come from donations?
that
Is that
all comes from donations. Yes, I'm very glad to say. I mean, it's people, it's churches, it's service organizations in the community and surrounding communities. It's really been quite an experience to
right?
realize just how much support there is for the work that, the focus is on, the staff and the volunteers that make up the well, the backbone of this agency. But the amount of support and the generosity of people in the community and surrounding communities is just amazing.
That is amazing. This year must have been very challenging, though. So,
Well, this year, well, March 2000 was
mhm,
very challenging because COVID was starting to get the upper hand on all of us, and we didn't
mhm,
know what we were doing. And yes, and this current winter that we are in the midst of right now, same thing.
mhm,
Only thing is, we have figured out what we're doing and how to do it. All I can say is that for the entire 6 winters, Monica Wright has been our executive director, and she immediately in March last year uh, took hold of the situation, um, and enforced all the protocols on the staff, on the volunteers, followed it herself, and made it stick with those who came to us as guests.
mhm.
Not one person came down with COVID, and she's kept track of all of those people. Many of the staff and the volunteers are back this winter,
Mhm.
and she kept in touch even over the summer with people who had been placed by the state of Connecticut at the end of our season. They were all placed in uh, local hotels. Some of them went to Hartford, but local hotels for the most part. And she kept track of them. Nobody got sick. It was
That's
just
amazing.
amazing.
That is
Yep,
amazing.
she
That's
did
a
a
testament to
wonderful
her
job.
leadership. Yeah, that's a
I'm sorry.
testament to her leadership. That's a testament
Yes,
to her leadership, and
indeed.
the willingness of everyone to do what they needed to do. So that's really
Well,
great.
to
And
to do what they needed to do for themselves and to protect others. I mean, I
mhm,
think that's
absolutely.
that's the whole thing about, for example, wearing masks and social distancing. Yes, you're protecting yourself, but mainly you're protecting others because your mask protects others. Their masks protect you.
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that is such a huge thing to understand, and to realize that she took in all the protocols that were being offered back last March, and made it work.
Right.
Over the summer, as we met with the board for the warming center, it became increasingly clear to us that if we didn't change our protocols,
Mhm.
it was going to be an enormous problem for everyone, uh, staff, volunteers, and guests. if we didn't do something radically different than we have done the previous 5 winters. And what was decided was that it was going to be uh, an effort at outreach. What we learned during the summer was that the state of Connecticut was willing to place homeless people who came into the system with the state in hotel rooms as quickly as possible. They were saying within 48 hours. And what we found out going into the winter was that when we got them into the system, they were placed that same evening. So we opened 2 nights a week, Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, from 6 in the evening until 9 o'clock. And it was a work of outreach, bringing people into the building, and we decided to go to St. Patrick's Church in Thompsonville because it would be less problematic for homeless persons who kind of focus in the Thompsonville section of Enfield. It would be less difficult for them to get to St. Patrick's.
Right.
And so they came, and we, through the work of CHR, Community Health Resources, we got them into the system of the state immediately. And so we gave them things that they needed as they passed through that lower level of St. Pat's. And as they exited, we got them over to the hotel, and they had a hotel room that night.
That's amazing. That's
Yes,
amazing.
it
That's
is.
a lot of there's a lot of coordination that goes into that. So
That's a lot of
that's
coordination. And once again, Monica, our executive director, has the connections and the networking to make that happen.
yeah, that is amazing. So
And
so you focused on outreach over the summer. How will that look going forward? What are the future plans? Because eventually we will be back to, I don't think it'll be exactly as it was before pre-COVID, but things will start to get back to normal. So
Yep.
how will that look going forward, do you think?
Well, I think there are a couple of ways to think about that. What I don't know is what's going to happen going forward with resources that the state can make available to people who are homeless. And so I have no way to really speculate even about that. What I know is that at our meeting of the board in September of 2019, we began to try to take a look at our thoughts about long-range planning for the agency that is known as Enfield Safe Harbor Warming Center. And 2 things were identified, or 2 goals were identified at that meeting. One was that we thought we needed a facility where we could offer what we do on an expanded basis, maybe even year round. So that was number one. That will be a huge step to try to take going forward, because we'll need a building, or at least space in a building, that will be available on a year-round basis. The second is that it's one thing to be a warming center, and it's another to be a shelter for homeless persons. And there are different protocols depending on what sort of agency we would be at that point. And mostly a warming center is a place where people can simply come indoors and get out of the cold in the winter, and if we're year round, the heat in the summer, bad weather at any time of year, that sort of thing.
Mhm. Right.
The there are actually suggestions that the people who come in and take advantage will be seated at tables and will be awake all night. And that's a tall order.
Mm. Right.
Um, and
Right.
I know of warming centers where they do that. We have worked it out with the local powers that be, that folks can lie down on the floor and sleep
Sleep.
if there are staff and volunteers who are awake all night and
Mhm.
ready to deal with any emergencies that arise.
Mhm. Right.
So that's an important piece, but there are expectations about the building, and
Mhm.
you
So
know
that's exciting though. That is exciting
it
that there
is.
are plans in the works and that goals going forward. So how would
Mhm.
if someone watching this, someone from the community wanted to help, how can they help? What's the best way for them to get involved?
Well, there are lots of opportunities for getting involved. Number one is simply to support the work of the warming center, which at the moment, we have a modest budget. Going forward, if we succeed with some of the vision, the budget will increase. So contributions will make a difference. There are individuals, agencies, both from this community in Enfield and surrounding communities, who support us by donating items, uh, sleeping bags, clothing, all kinds, food,
All the things.
because people, in addition to having a safe and warm place to be, need something to eat
Mhm.
and drink, and we try to send them out with some prepared foods that they can have in their pockets. Usually that means commercially packaged, that sort of thing, and
Right.
bottled water, and
Right.
that can make a huge difference in somebody's day, especially like a year ago when they went out and virtually everything was closed down. You
Right.
couldn't get into a restaurant, you couldn't get into the library, you couldn't, if you were older, you couldn't get into the senior center. I mean, it was last
Right.
year, it was really hard.
And that's something a lot of people don't think about
Yep.
because there are not, you don't find water fountains around anymore. It
Oh.
really, it's tough to find a place to get a drink of water. So it's
Hmm.
really important, but it's something that we all take for granted for the
Yes.
most part. So that's important. So that's exciting. And so thank you so much, Reverend Bushnell. It's been really interesting to talk to you and informative. And I hope that anyone watching who's interested in getting involved with the Enfield Safe Harbor Warming Center keeps an eye on this Facebook page or goes to the website to see how they can get involved, how you can get involved. So thank you again. And everyone out there, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.